Hello, friends. This is Michael Robbins.
And hello to everybody, this is Tuya Robbins.
We are still here at the conference site. We've had a wonderful conference. Unfortunately, some of us did get sick following the intensive process, and Tuya and I were among them, but we are rallying, and we're very grateful for the fact that we can actually be with you for this all-important moment. We doubted the possibility even a day ago. And normally this would be a broadcast, but what's available to us now is the webinar, and so some of the folks who would like to get on may find that they cannot, and we'll do our best to send everybody a recording of the process. Now, here we have from Francis Donald an idealized image of the Buddha who has come in from the northeast and is a great etheric image towering above the assembled hierarchy below him. He represents Shambhala. His residence now is Shambhala, and we are now going to be participating in the high point of the spiritual year. The blessing from Shambhala through the Christ, through his hierarchy, and to all the initiates, disciples, and aspirants, and ultimately to all human beings and to the planet. We figured that simplicity would be the best course of action at this time. We're going to read to you the famous legend of Wesak, something that Alice Bailey wrote in the early days as a booklet, and I know so many of you are familiar with it. And we'll go paragraph by paragraph meditatively. Tuya and I will alternate. And then it should be about time at that point to begin our work in the silence. There's going to be a lot of silence because perhaps the Wesak is the most silent moment of the year with the greatest potentials for receptivity. It is said that the Buddha approaches a little before the full moon, and a little before the full moon, and departs, I suppose, at the end of 8 minutes once the full moon has begun. The exact timing is not worked out, but he's really present in full and present form for the important 8 minutes. He is, after all, Mercury, and Mercury is the guardian at the 8th gate. So all that time, maybe for about 12 minutes, there will be silence, and we will signal the beginning of the full moon, and we will then signal the end of the 8-minute period, and we will hold the silence afterwards. So I think then our best thing to do, yes, and following the fade out of the meditation, we will show some actual images of the Wesak Valley when we were there for the Shambhala impact of the year 2000. And it's a very real place, and I suspect that you will enjoy seeing them. But of course, at that time, the important thing is to be holding the receptivity and being ready to distribute, hold and distribute over the next several days. So we will now begin, and I'll kind of show an image here, which is also from Francis Donald. It's an idealized image, and when we show you the actual images from the valley, you will see the ways in which it has been idealized. So Tuya is going to begin the reading, and we will alternate paragraphs, and we will do this hopefully in a meditative way that will allow you to feel you are participating in the events of the valley, where already, etherically, astrally, and perhaps also physically, people are gathering for this great event. So then, Tuya, we will begin.
And also I am sending my love to all Plural sisters and those who were last year in Tibet. We couldn't get into Kailash, but we were in powerful healing valley at that time. So let us all tune into this beautiful story of the Wesak. The legend of the Wesak. There is a valley lying at a rather high altitude in the foothills of the Himalayan Tibet ranges. It is surrounded by high mountains on all sides except towards the northeast, where there is a narrow opening in the mountain ranges. The valley is bottle-shaped in contour, with the neck of the bottle to the northeast, and it widens very considerably towards the south. Up towards the northern end, close to the neck of the bottle, there is a huge flat rock. There are no trees or shrubs in the valley, which is covered with a kind of coarse grass.
Approaching the time of the full moon of Taurus, pilgrims from the surrounding districts begin to gather. The holy men and the lamas find their way into the valley and fill the southern and the middle parts, leaving the northeastern end relatively free. There, so the legend runs, gathers a group of those great beings who are the custodians on earth of God's plan for our planet and for humanity.
This group of knowers of divinity are the main participants in the Wesak festival. They arrange themselves in the northeastern end of the valley, in concentric circles, and prepare for a great act of service. In front of the rock, looking towards the northeast, stand those beings who are called by their disciples the three great lords. These are the Christ, who stands in the center, the Lord of living forms, the Manu, who stands at his right, and the Lord of civilization, who stands to his left. These three face the rock upon which rest rests a great crystal bowl full of water.
Behind the grouped masters, adepts, initiates, and senior workers under God's plan are to be found the world disciples and aspirants in their various grades and groups, either in the body or out of the body, who at this time constitute the new group of world servers. Those present in their physical bodies have found their way there by ordinary means. Others are present in their spiritual bodies, and in the dream state, the dream which they later relate has been uniformly registered by people throughout the world, and bears the testimony to the recollection of an inner spiritual happening.
As the hour of the full moon approaches, a stillness settles down upon the crowd, and all look towards the northeast. Certain ritualistic movements take place, in which the grouped masters and their disciples of all ranks take up symbolic positions, and form on the floor of the valley such significant symbols as the five-pointed star, with the Christ standing at the highest point, of a triangle with the Christ at the apex, or a cross, and other well-known formations, all of which have a deep and potent meaning. This is all done to the sound of certain chanted words and esoteric phrases called mantrams.
And before we move on with the reading, let us attempt to visualize this process, which is beginning to occur even now as we speak, mostly on etheric and subtle levels. But let us see if we can visually participate for a moment or two. expectancy in the waiting, onlooking crowd becomes very great, and the tension is real and increasing. Through the entire body of people there seems to be felt a stimulation or potent vibration which has the effect of awakening the souls of those present, fusing and blending the group into one united whole, and lifting all into a great act of spiritual demand, readiness, and expectancy. It is the climax of the world's aspiration, focused in this waiting group. These three words, demand, readiness, and expectation, best describe the atmosphere surrounding those present in this secret valley.
The chanting and the rhythmic weaving grow stronger, and all the participants and the watching crowd raise their eyes towards the sky, in the direction of the narrow part. We will have to repeat that paragraph because one of the computers has faded out, and we will do that in just a moment. I will repeat that right now, just a slight technical problem. The chanting and the rhythmic weaving grow stronger, and all the participants and the watching crowd raise their eyes towards the sky in the direction of the narrow part of the valley. Just a few minutes before the exact time of the full moon, in the far distance, a tiny speck can be seen in the sky. It comes nearer and grows in clarity and definiteness of outline until the form of the Buddha can be seen, seated in the cross-legged Buddha position, clad in his saffron-colored robe, bathed in light and color, and with his hand extended in blessing.
When the Buddha arrives exactly over the great rock, hovering there in the air, over the heads of the three great lords, a great mantram used only once a year at the festival is intoned by the Christ, and the entire group of people in the valley fall upon their faces. This invocation sets up a great vibration or thought current which is of such potency that it reaches up from the group of aspirants, disciples, and initiates who employ it to the being we know as God. It marks the supreme moment of the intensive spiritual effort throughout the entire year, and the spiritual vitalization of humanity and the spiritual effects last throughout the succeeding months.
The effect of this great invocation is universal and or cosmic, and serves to link us up with that cosmic center of spiritual force from which all created beings have come. The blessing is poured forth, and the Christ, as the representative of humanity, receives it in trust for distribution.
Thus, so the legend runs, the Buddha returns once a year to bless the world, transmitting renewed spiritual fire through the Christ. Slowly then, the Buddha recedes into the distance until again only a faint speck can be seen in the sky, and this eventually disappears. The whole ceremonial blessing from the time of the first appearance in the distance until the moment the Buddha fades out takes just 8 minutes.
The Buddha's annual sacrifice for humanity, for he comes back only at great cost, is over, and he returns again to that high place where he works and waits. Year after year he comes back in blessing. Year after year he and his great brother, the Christ, work in the closest cooperation for the spiritual benefit of humanity. In these two great sons of God have been focused two aspects of divine life, and they act together as custodians of the highest type of spiritual force to which our humanity can respond. Through the Buddha, the wisdom of God is poured forth. through the Christ, the love of God is manifested in humanity. And it is this wisdom and love which pours forth upon humanity each Wesak full moon.
When the Buddha has again disappeared, the crowd rises to their feet. The water in the bowl is distributed in tiny portions to the masters, initiates, and disciples, and they then go their way to their place of service. The crowd, who have all brought their little cups and vessels of water, drink of them and share with others. In this beautiful water ceremony of communion is portrayed the symbol of the new age, which is upon us, the Aquarian age, the age of the water carrier. Let us ponder that fact for a moment.
In this ceremony is perpetuated for us the story of the universality of God's love, the need for our individual purification, and the opportunity to share with each other that which belongs to all. The water, which has been magnetized by the presence of the Buddha and of the Christ, carries certain properties and virtues of healing and helpful nature. Thus blessed, the crowd silently disappears. From the Wesak Festival, A Techniques of Spiritual Contact, booklet by Alice Bailey, published by Lucy's Trust.
Now, friends, the rest will be at first in silence. Just imagine now that you are preparing yourself for this intense moment. That will be about 5 minutes. The next bell that you hear will be about 2 minutes before the full moon. And then there will be the full moon bell, and you will enter into your own deep process in silence, and when 8 minutes has elapsed, another bell will sound, after which let there be a period of silent assimilation. So the first bell is meant to signal the approach of the Buddha, and the second bell, the full moon, and the third bell, the withdrawing of the Buddha. We'll do our best technically as we can under some difficult circumstances, but the important thing is we all now attune in the silence. Prepare yourself for the inner approach of the Buddha. The approach of the Buddha. full moon. the withdrawal of the Buddha. And let us hold the silence. Let us imagine that we are partaking of that which has been offered, and will find the way rightly to share in this Taurian Aquarian water ceremony. the next 12 hours are of very great importance, and one hardly knows what one has received. It has to precipitate into the brain consciousness, and so great attentiveness will be required, and the participation in the distribution.
And we also remember that only 1.5 weeks ago we had the exact opposition of Pluto conjunction with Vega opposing Zero. And also when we think about the work of Manu, just a week ago we had in Nepal the great earthquake, and it is said that when Buddha died it was marked by the earthquake. So energetically we know that these are very powerful energies pouring into humanity continuously, and that is why this Wesak time in relationship to all that what's going on is again extremely important.
The sense of communion between us all here on this little webinar and with the new group of world servers and with all men and women of goodwill and humanity can be very strong, is very strong, and needs to be strong to help humanity make a balanced passage through these 10 years leading up to the great hierarchical conclave at Wesak of 2025. Perhaps you would like to see just a few actual images from the valley. There's the rock in the distance. Kailash, the northeast. So, friends, we have spent an hour together in each other's presence and in the presence of the great ones and of the great Shambhalic representative, the Lord Buddha. We're going to close very soon now. Please maintain your point of tension. It's the high point. Tuya, is there anything you would like to say before we close?
Just Vesak blessings to everybody. And again, I am having all the people who were last year in Tibet in my heart. We send healing to all of these people who need help in Nepal and around Himalayas.
So, friends, we will close with the great invocation followed by the sacred word 3 times. And many blessings to all of you. Let us feel this communion, which is so possible now at this high point of the spiritual year, and let us take full advantage of it. The great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Oh.